Hello again, dear friend. Come settle in beside me. Perhaps you've brought your tea, or maybe just a quiet breath and a willing heart. The morning light is soft today, the kind that paints silver on the garden leaves and casts gentle shadows on the porch. It's a perfect moment to dream, don't you think? Now close your eyes for just a second and picture your outdoor space. Maybe it's a patio, a narrow balcony, or a cozy backyard patch that's seen many seasons. Whatever shape it takes, imagine it brimming with personality, full of character and charm, not from store-bought pieces, but from things that once had another life. A lamp base without a bulb, a chair missing its seat, a tired bird cage gathering dust in the garage. You don't need to spend much or anything at all, really, to create beauty. Not here, not in the garden, and not in this chapter of life. What you need is something you already have, imagination, care, and a gentle sense of possibility. You see, there's a quiet kind of magic in making something beautiful out of what others might throw away. It's not fast or flashy. It's slow, thoughtful, and deeply satisfying, like planting seeds with old hands that know the value of time. It's about giving things, and sometimes ourselves, a second chance. In today's visit, I've gathered 20 wonderfully creative garden decor ideas that start not with a trip to the store, but with a stroll through your attic, your local thrift shop, or even your recycling bin. Each one is made with love-thrifted treasures and a sprinkle of whimsy. Whether you're upcycling for fun, decorating on a dime, or simply looking to bring new life to old things, I hope you find something here that delights you. Let's begin, shall we? Remember that old pair of jeans tucked away in the back of your closet? The ones with a tear in the knee and soft worn patches from years of wear. Maybe you wore them gardening, or maybe they remind you of someone you once knew who did. Don't throw them out just yet, they still have a story to tell. Today, we're turning those faded jeans into a delightful garden companion, a whimsical scarecrow lady dressed in charm and memory. And the best part, you won't need to lift heavy tools or bend low to bring her to life. Start with a sturdy wooden stake. This will be her spine. You can gently drive it into the ground with minimal effort, or anchor it into a weighted pot if kneeling isn't an option. Now take your old jeans and stuff them gently with straw recycled newspaper, or even old plastic bags if that's what you have on hand. Secure the waistband to the stake with twine or wire so she stands tall. Next comes the fun part, dressing her. A floral blouse from your closet or a thrift store rack gives her that vintage garden granny look. Soft colors, lace trim, maybe even a button or two missing perfect. Stuff the blouse just as you did the jeans and either sew or safety pin it to the pants for a snug, secure fit. For her head, use a small pillowcase fabric scrap or even a white sock. Draw or stitch a kind face, simple eyes, a warm smile. Nothing too fancy. This isn't about perfection, it's about personality. Top it all with a straw hat from your summer box or the local Value Village. Tuck a few silk flowers into the band, maybe a ribbon, maybe not. For her hands, garden gloves tied at the cuffs bring a finishing touch. And there she is, not just a scarecrow, but a story standing among your blooms. She won't scare off much, except perhaps the thought that old things have no use. Because even worn denim and forgotten blouses still have beauty to share. Still useful just like us. Have you ever looked at an old metal bucket and thought, well, that's just a rusted thing now. Maybe it held apples once, or helped you water the tomatoes during dry summers. But even a humble bucket can put on a show with a little imagination and a lot of heart. This project begins with that very same metal bucket. Clean it up a bit, not too perfect, just enough to give it a second wind. Now, using weather-resistant paint, let's give it a personality. Big, curious eyes and a cheerful beak, painted right onto the front, transform it into a charming birdwatcher part, garden guardian part, neighborly friend. Once dry, flip the bucket upside down and place it on a sturdy pole. A broomstick works well, or an old curtain rod. Dress this body in an old raincoat, buttoned or tied to stay put. The coat should flutter a bit when the wind blows. It brings the figure to life in a soft, sweet way. Add gloves to the end of the sleeves, even binoculars if you've got a toy pair lying around. Suddenly, your bird watcher has a purpose, not just guarding your flowers, but keeping a watchful eye on the trees and feeders, ready to spot a blue jay or robin's return. Plant it in the ground, a large pot, or wherever you like to sit and enjoy your blooms. It doesn't take much bending or lifting. In fact, most of this project can be done sitting down, especially with help from a grandchild or neighbor. The real beauty of this garden sculpture isn't just in its quirky shape, but in the laughter it brings, the kind that comes from repurposing forgotten things into something cheerful and light. Because sometimes the best way to guard joy is simply to create it. Do you remember the sound a needle made when it touched down on a record? That soft crackle before the music played. Maybe you had a favorite vinyl that spun on Sunday mornings, or a stack of them that once lined your living room shelf. Even if the music has faded, the record itself still has a rhythm to share. This idea brings time and beauty back to your garden, using a thrifted vinyl record to make a retro chic garden clock. Start by choosing a record with a colorful or memorable label. Don't worry if it's scratched. It's not going on a turntable, it's becoming something new. Clean the surface gently, then decorate it using floral decoupage. Cut flower shapes from napkins, old greeting cards, or decorative paper. Mod Podge is perfect for this, but any craft glue and a soft brush will do. Let your creativity bloom across the face of the record, delicate roses, wildflowers, or even pressed leaves from your own garden. Once dry, check if the record has a center hole. Most do. If not, use a small hand drill to create one carefully. Then insert old clock parts, maybe from a broken wall clock or a cheap thrift store find. Align the hands and secure the battery pack behind the vinyl. Just a little screwdriver work, nothing heavy. Test it before hanging, making sure it ticks gently along. Then mount it on a fence, a potting shed wall, or even lean it on a garden shelf. It becomes more than just a timepiece. It's a conversation starter, a memory reimagined. And you didn't have to buy anything new. Just $1 or $2 at the thrift store, a brush of glue, and your own sweet touch. Because even if the music stops, the story keeps spinning. There's something magical about jars. Tiny glass windows into the past. Maybe you kept buttons in them or seashells from a long-ago beach trip. Some held dried lavender or your grandmother's thread spools. Whatever the contents, jars are like memory keepers, and today they'll catch the wind and tell your stories. To begin this sentimental breeze catcher, gather a handful of small jars. Spice jars, jelly jars, even old baby food containers work well. Give them a gentle wash, then fill each one with tiny treasures, an old key, a thimble, a pebble from the garden, or even a folded note in your own handwriting. These aren't just objects, they're echoes. Seal the lids tightly. If you want extra charm, tie ribbons or twine around the necks, or add a dab of glue to keep them shut. Then take strong wire or durable twine and tie it securely around each jar neck, making sure it hangs freely but won't slip off. Next, find a circular base. A metal hoop from an old wreath, a sturdy embroidery ring, or even the top of an old wire basket will do. Space the jars evenly around the frame and tie them so they dangle down at different lengths. Not too close, you want them to sway gently, not clash. Attach a swivel hook or a small hanging plant hook to the top. This lets the whole spinner turn with the breeze. Then hang it from a tree limb, a pergola beam, or even your porch. Somewhere with movement, but not too wild. Let it dance. As it turns, the jars will shimmer in the light and clink softly, not loud, just enough to make you pause. And when you see them, you'll remember. Not just the objects, but the moments. This project doesn't cost much. Most of it may already be in your home, and the reward, a handmade wind chime made not from metal but from memory. Because some stories are best told in quiet motion. Do you have an old lamp sitting in the garage? Maybe the base is beautiful, even if the cord is frayed or the bulb long gone. Lamps were once the keepers of light inside the home, but now they can bring that same glow and presence to the garden, not through electricity, but through blooming life. This project begins with broken or unwanted lamp parts. If you've got more than one lamp, even better. Unscrew the base's rods and spacers. You'll use them to create a totem-like tower. Don't worry about matching pieces. In fact, the more mismatched they are, the more character your planter will have. To assemble the tower, stack the lamp parts from largest to smallest using the original threaded rod to hold them together if possible. If that's tricky, you can simply use strong outdoor adhesive or epoxy, one section at a time. Take your time, there's no rush here. Each layer builds a new story. Once your tower is assembled and dry, give it a coat of outdoor-safe spray paint in a color you love. Something cheerful, soft green, rustic bronze lavender mist. Let it dry completely. Now comes the planter part. Using hose clamps or sturdy wire, attach mini terracotta pots to the lamp tower. Angle them slightly outward like flower petals reaching toward the sun. You don't need many. 3 to 5 pots along the height is enough for balance and beauty. Fill each pot with potting soil and choose small trailing plants or succulents. Because the tower stands tall, you won't need to bend, just plant from a seated position or while standing comfortably. Place your new stacked lamp planter in a sunny garden corner or even on a patio where guests will surely ask, "Where did you find that?" And you can smile knowing it wasn't found, it was saved, given a second life one layer at a time. Because light takes many forms, and this one blooms. Do you remember those old lamp bases with frosted glass shades that used to sit quietly in corners or on bedside tables? Maybe one belonged to your mother. Maybe it lived on your nightstand, glowing through late-night stories and quiet thoughts. Now, with just a little care and a spark of creativity, that old lamp can shine once more, this time under the stars. This gentle project begins with a thrifted or forgotten lamp base, the kind with a bit of weight and a decorative glass or frosted shade. Remove any wiring switches or bulbs. No need for cords out in the garden. What we're after now is a soft solar glow. Clean the glass thoroughly, inside and out. If the shade is textured or has etched details, even better, it'll scatter the light like raindrops on a window pane. Take a small solar garden light, the kind that charges by day and glows by night, and remove the plastic stake. Nest the solar lights top the part with the panel and bulb inside the lamp's glass shade. Use strong adhesive if needed, or simply set it snugly in place if it fits well. Make sure the solar panel faces up and can drink in the sun's rays. For an extra magical touch, you can add a few fairy lights inside the shade before sealing it, or a pinch of glitter, or even a dried flower or two. These small details catch the light and make the glow feel enchanted. Set your new fairy lamp beside a garden bench, at the edge of a path, or tucked gently between flower pots. No cords, no switches, just light restored. And perhaps as the sun sets and your garden begins to hum with evening sounds, that little glow will remind you that even after a long rest, we can still shine. Because beauty doesn't need to be plugged in. Sometimes it only needs a second chance and a bit of light. Do you remember passing shop windows downtown where mannequins stood dressed in the finest clothes of the season, still and silent, but always full of poise? Perhaps you once admired them as a child or passed one by in a thrift store wondering what on earth someone might do with a thing like that. Well, how about turning her into a blooming garden lady? Start with a sturdy old chair, wooden or metal, either will do. Find a mannequin torso, which thrift stores or salvage yards often have tucked away. It doesn't need arms or legs, just a simple form. Attach the torso securely to the seat of the chair using strong adhesive or screws. You're creating a sculpture here, but there's no need for perfection, just stability. Dress your garden lady however you please. An old linen blouse, a lacy shawl, or even a bit of burlap wrapped elegantly around her middle can give her a rustic charm. Add a sun hat if you'd like. She should look like she's resting, enjoying the sun as much as your roses do. Now for the planting. Line the chair's seat and the torso cavity with moss or coconut coir to hold soil in place. Then fill those spaces with rich potting soil and tuck in trailing plants like ivy, creeping jenny, or petunias. Let the flowers spill over her lap, her shoulders, maybe even down her back. Every few weeks, as the plants grow, she becomes more alive, a living artwork in your garden. You can tend to her from a seated position or while standing. No kneeling, no digging, just gentle care. Place her in a quiet corner of your garden where she can greet you like an old friend. She may not say much, but she will tell stories in petals and leaves, in sun-faded fabric, in the way nature reclaims forgotten things. Because even mannequins, like people, can bloom again with a little love. Maybe you have a pair tucked away, the glittery heels you wore to a wedding long ago, or that sparkly pair you found at a thrift store just because they made you smile. Too uncomfortable to wear, too fabulous to toss. Well, now they can live a new life, not on your feet, but in your garden. This whimsical project starts with just that, a pair of high heels, preferably ones with sparkle sequins or bold color. the kind that makes you think of music and celebration. Clean them gently, removing any dust or dirt, but leave the personality intact. That's the charm. To prepare them for planting, flip them over and carefully drill small drainage holes in the soles, just a few, to keep water from collecting inside. If you'd rather not drill, place a bit of gravel at the bottom of each shoe to help with drainage. Line the inside of each heel with landscape fabric, a coffee filter, or even a bit of scrap denim to hold the soil. Then fill them with potting mix and choose compact sun-loving plants like moss roses or miniature zinnias. These little blooms will happily make a home in the narrow space and won't ask for much. Gently water them and set the heels where they can shine on a garden shelf, a patio ledge, or nestled among your flower pots like guests at a garden party. They don't take up much room, and there's no bending or lifting needed once they're placed. They may not be practical anymore for walking, but they can still bring joy, and maybe a smile from anyone who passes by. Because some things like high heels and people don't lose their sparkle with age. They just find new ways to shine. Once upon a time, an old tire rolled across the years on a car, maybe a truck carrying families to school picnics and garden centers. And now it rests. Worn out, perhaps, but not useless. Not if you have a bit of paint, a few blooms, and a fence in need of color. To make these bold tire flower rings, begin by giving your tires a good wash. A sturdy brush and a little soap are all you need. Don't worry about every scratch. Imperfections add charm. Next, choose your colors. Spray paint works best, and the brighter the better. Sunflower yellow, cherry red, mint green. Let the paint dry in the sun. It usually takes just an hour or two. Watching the color come to life is part of the fun. Once dry, mount the tires flat against a fence or wall using heavy-duty hooks or brackets. If lifting is tricky, ask for help from a neighbor or family member. But here's a tip: you can also place them on the ground upright, like standing rings supported by garden stakes. That way, no heavy lifting at all. Inside each ring, nestle in a potted plant. You can use small hanging baskets or even plastic pots tucked inside. Choose trailing flowers like petunias, lobelia, or alyssum, anything that spills out with joy. No need to dig or bend, just reach in and water gently when needed. Arrange multiple tires in a pattern, maybe 3 in a row or a clustered triangle. Each one becomes its own floral spotlight. Together they form a living mosaic. You didn't have to buy anything new. Just color, creativity, and a little care turned a tired tire into a garden frame. Because beauty doesn't always come from the newest thing. Sometimes it's what we choose to see in the old. Do you remember old swings from childhood, the kind made from ropes and tires swaying gently under a shady tree? There's something comforting about that image. A tire, some twine, and a soft summer breeze. Now imagine that same tire not swinging you, but welcoming birds to your garden with grace and cheer. To begin this project, find an old tire. Any size will do, though smaller ones are easier to handle. Give it a good wash to remove any lingering grime or debris. Once clean and dry, it's time to bring color to life. Choose a bright, happy hue. Turquoise, coral, or sunshine yellow, and coat the tire with outdoor spray paint. This step alone turns the tire into a cheerful piece of art. Once dry, attach 3 or 4 evenly spaced ropes or chains around the tire's circumference. Use strong materials and knot them securely. Think of it like making a hanging planter. These will allow the tire to hang balanced like a swing for your feathered friends. In the center opening of the tire, place a bird feeder. You can tie a simple tray with additional twine or hang a store-bought feeder inside the circle. Even a small bowl with bird seed will do. Just be sure it's stable. Now find the perfect spot under a sturdy tree limb, from a pergola beam, or even on a shepherd's hook. Hang your colorful tire station where birds can flutter in easily and perch along the rim. A nearby bird bath or a shallow dish of water can add even more welcome. No heavy lifting is required. The pieces can be assembled while seated and hung with help if needed. Once it's up, your job is simply to enjoy the gentle activity it brings. Because in every recycled swing, every painted tire, there's an invitation to rest, to nourish, to come home. And the birds like us know how to recognize kindness when they see it. Once upon a time, those soft floral sheets tucked you in at night. Faded now, maybe torn at the edges, but full of warmth and memories. Before you toss them aside, consider this: What if they could flutter again, this time in the garden breeze? This simple, lovely project turns vintage or thrifted bed sheets into a cheerful flag banner that brings a soft patchwork of color to your outdoor space. Start by cutting your fabric into rectangles or triangles about the size of a postcard. Works well. If your hands tire easily, take your time and rest between cuts. There's no hurry. Arrange the fabric pieces on a flat surface like a table or countertop. Think of it as a little quilt in the air. Then, if you feel up to it, decorate each flag with fabric paint or markers. Draw tiny flowers, bees, watering cans, whatever speaks to your garden spirit. Even simple polka dots or stripes will bring joy. If painting isn't comfortable, you can leave the fabric as is. The patterns on the sheets often carry their own soft nostalgia. Roses, vines, delicate colors from another time. To string your banner, use a length of twine or sturdy ribbon. You can sew the fabric pieces onto it, fold and glue them over the string, or use safety pins if sewing is too much. It's not about perfection, it's about story. Now hang your flag banner across a fence, above a garden bench, or along your porch railing. Let it wave in the sunlight and catch the wind like a line of whispered dreams. No heavy tools, no kneeling, just you, your memories, and a bit of fabric telling their tale again. Because even when things fade, they still hold beauty. And sometimes they fly. If you've ever patched a pair of jeans, you know the satisfaction that comes from keeping something going just a little bit longer. Denim ages like we do, a little softer, a little more frayed, but with more stories stitched into every fold. So today, let's give your old jeans a new purpose right in the garden. This sweet and simple project turns worn denim into handmade plant tags, rustic, charming, and wonderfully practical. Start by cutting your denim into strips about 6 inches long and 1 inch wide. The frayed edges, leave them. That's where the character lives. Now gather some popsicle sticks, old wooden chopsticks, or thin twigs from the yard. Attach 1 denim strip to each stick using a dot of hot glue, strong tape, or a quick stitch. Position the strip at the top of the stick like a little flag. If your hands get tired, work slowly. A few at a time is just fine. Next comes the fun part, labeling. Use a chalk marker, fabric paint pen, or even a permanent marker to write the name of each plant: mint, rosemary, zinnias. Or if you'd rather write something whimsical like Sunshine Spot or Bee Stop Cafe. There's no wrong way to name your garden. Once your tags are ready, gently press the stick into the soil beside each plant. No bending required. A long stick can be inserted from a seated position or with a small hand tool. And because denim is weather-friendly, your tags will last through rain and shine. These humble little markers don't just organize your garden, they bring a touch of handmade soul to every pot and bed. Because even fabric that's outlived its days as clothing can still help things grow. And so can we. Do you remember bird cages from years gone by? Maybe one sat on your grandmother's porch, not for birds, but filled with dried flowers or a porcelain figurine. Even when empty, it felt like it held something, a hush, a memory, a story. That's the kind of quiet beauty we're inviting back into your garden today. To begin this soft, glowing fairy lantern, start with a vintage bird cage. You can often find them at thrift stores or flea markets sometimes, with chipped paint or a little rust. That's perfectly fine. It's not about looking new. It's about feeling loved. Clean the cage gently, then decide if you'd like to paint it. A soft pastel or creamy white brings a dreamy cottage look, but leaving it natural adds vintage character. Spray paint is easiest and requires no brushwork, just a few passes in the fresh air and a bit of drying time. Now comes the magic. Wrap a strand of solar-powered fairy lights around the bars, weaving gently in and out. Let the solar panel rest just outside the top of the cage where it can catch the sun. If you like, line the base of the cage with moss-dried rose petals or even small stones for texture. Then tuck in tiny touches, a miniature toadstool, a faux bird, or a small ceramic fairy. These little accents create a storybook world inside the bars. Just enough to spark wonder. Hang the cage from a sturdy tree limb or porch hook where it can catch the breeze and the last golden light of day. As night falls, the lights will twinkle softly as if whispered wishes had taken form. And there it will remain, not just a lantern, but a quiet reminder that even things made to hold birds can learn to hold light. Because the past may not fly anymore, but it still glows. Some treasures are too delicate for the soil. Old seed packets with hand-drawn labels, faded gloves with dirt still in the fingertips, a photo of a little girl holding a watering can, perhaps. These aren't things you plant. These are things you preserve. And what better way to hold those garden memories than in a shadow box? Start with a deep frame, the kind meant to display keepsakes. You might find one at a thrift store or tucked away in your own attic. It doesn't need to be perfect. Scratches and scuffs are welcome here. They carry the history we're about to celebrate. Line the back of the shadow box with soft fabric, old floral paper, or even a garden-themed page from a vintage magazine. Then begin placing your items: a pair of antique shears, a packet of marigold seeds, a dried bloom from last summer's bed, or a handwritten recipe for compost tea. Lay them out gently. Pin or glue each piece in place one by one. No rush. Let this be a meditation, a tribute to quiet hours spent in the dirt, the warmth of sun on your shoulders, the laughter of someone who once gardened beside you. Add a note if you wish: Grandma's garden, or planted with love. Even a child's drawing or a clipping from an old seed catalog can add a personal touch. When your memory box feels complete, close it up and hang it near your potting table, or place it beside your favorite indoor plant. You don't need to be bending, digging, or painting. This is a project you can build while seated with a soft cloth in your lap and a cup of tea nearby. And every time you pass it, you'll remember. Because gardens aren't just rows of plants. They're chapters. And this box, it's a page from your story. There's something about a globe that invites wonder. You may have traced your fingers along its lines once, imagining faraway places or planning family trips. Now, though, that old globe might sit in a corner, faded, forgotten. But don't set it aside just yet. It still has places to go, and this time it's spinning its magic in your garden. To create your own globe garden spinner, begin by gently separating the globe into two halves. If it's an old plastic model, you can often open it with a gentle twist or a cut along the seam. Use gloves if needed and go slowly, no rush here. Next, smooth any rough edges with fine sandpaper. You're not aiming for perfection, just safety and softness. Once that's done, it's time to paint. Use outdoor acrylic paints or spray paint to transform each half into something whimsical. Butterflies, garden flowers, buzzing bees, even abstract patterns in sky blues and meadow greens. There are no rules here, only what delights your eyes. Let the painted halves dry completely. Then mount them onto a central pole, an old broom handle, a curtain rod, or even a recycled lamp stand. Position them so they can catch the wind and spin gently. A lazy turn is enough. The movement doesn't need to be fast. In fact, the slower it turns, the more peaceful it feels. Anchor the base of your spinner firmly into the soil or place it in a heavy planter to keep it steady. There's no need to bend or lift more than you're comfortable with. This is a project that can come together piece by piece, slowly and sweetly. When the breeze picks up, your garden globe will twirl like a daydream, catching sunlight and memories with every spin. Because wonder doesn't end when maps grow old. It just finds new ways to turn. Maybe you once carried a little clutch purse, satin-lined, with a gentle clasp that clicked closed after church or dinner out. It sat gracefully on your lap or tucked under your arm, holding only the essentials: a handkerchief, a comb, maybe a piece of peppermint candy. Now that same clutch, long retired, can bloom again, not with lipstick or keys, but with life. To begin this poetic wall garden, find a vintage clutch or purse with a firm shape. Leather, vinyl, or fabric works just fine. The more character, the better. Clean it gently, preserving any stitching or embroidery. These small touches become part of the charm. Next, mount the clutch onto a wooden frame or board, using small nails, screws, or even strong fabric glue. Position it so the opening faces out and slightly upward, like a pocket waiting to be filled. If you're not comfortable using tools, ask someone to help secure it or prop the clutch inside a shadow box frame where it can stand freely. Line the inside of the purse with coconut coir moss or landscape fabric to hold soil. Then fill it with rich potting soil and add trailing plants such as ivy baby's tears or string of pearls. These gentle vines will drape over the edges like the folds of an elegant dress. If lifting is difficult, this whole project can be done on a tabletop and hung at eye level later with help. No crouching, no strain. Once placed on a garden wall fence or patio corner, your vintage clutch transforms into a soft bouquet, elegant and unexpected. A little piece of your past now holding the present in bloom. Because beauty doesn't expire with fashion. It simply waits for its next chapter. There's something nostalgic about a pair of old garden boots. Perhaps they once walked rows of tomato plants, stepped in puddles with grandkids, or stood in morning dew while you sipped your first cup of coffee. Their soles may be worn, their colors faded, but oh, how they've served. Now, instead of tucking them away, let's turn them into a path of light. Start with a pair of rubber boots, yours or maybe someone else's cast-offs from a thrift store. Clean them well inside and out. Any scuffs or scrapes just add to their story. Next, take a pair of solar garden light stakes, the kind with small panels on top. Remove the stakes from the bottom and nest the solar lights inside the boots, so the panel sticks out the top and can absorb sunlight. If the lights are too short, place a small rock or bit of soil at the bottom of the boot to lift them up. For added stability, you can pack the boots with stones or sand. This helps keep them upright and firmly in place. There's no heavy lifting here, just a gentle seated task with a bit of creativity. Once assembled, line the boots along your garden path, porch steps, or patio edge. When evening comes, the lights will flicker on like tiny lanterns, guiding your way softly, not with brilliance, but with familiarity. These light-up boots offer more than function. They remind us that the things that once carried us, even when muddy and tired, still have something left to give. Because it's not about being new. It's about being ready to shine again. Do you still have an old suitcase tucked away? The kind with a creaky handle and brass latches, perhaps lined in patterned fabric from decades ago. It might have once carried dresses to weddings or pajamas to your grandchild's house. And now it can carry something even more special, flowers. To create this charming suitcase bloom box, start with a vintage suitcase, soft-sided or hard. Either will do. Open it up gently and remove the inner lining if it's too worn. A pair of scissors and a little patience are all you need. Underneath, you'll find the shell that's ready to hold new life. Drill a few small holes in the bottom for drainage. Or if drilling isn't an option, line the inside with pebbles or broken pottery to keep water from pooling. Then lay down a layer of landscape fabric or burlap to help contain the soil while allowing water to pass through. Now fill it with rich potting soil. Choose low-maintenance container-loving flowers, marigolds, pansies, or trailing petunias. All work beautifully. If bending is uncomfortable, you can do all the planting while the suitcase is set on a table or bench. Once it's full, simply carry or wheel it to its resting place. You can leave the suitcase wide open for a dramatic cascading effect or tilt it just slightly ajar so that the flowers peek out like they're on their way to somewhere special. Place your bloom box on the porch next to a garden bench, or even on a sturdy outdoor shelf. Wherever it sits, it brings with it the spirit of travel and the comfort of home. Because some things like suitcases and hearts are meant to be filled, emptied, and filled again. Maybe there's an old tin on your shelf, the kind your mother or grandmother used to keep buttons in. A rainbow of little rounds, some pearly, some bright, some chipped or mismatched. Each one once held a place on a coat, a blouse, a memory. What if instead of sitting in a box, those buttons could bloom? This final project is simple, joyful, and full of personality button flower stakes for your garden beds and pots. Start by collecting a handful of large buttons or small wooden circles like coasters or game pieces from the thrift store. Don't worry if they're scratched or uneven. That just adds charm. Paint each flower head in bright, cheerful colors: daffodil yellow, tulip, red sky blue. Use dot, stripes, or swirl patterns if you like. Once dry, use strong glue to attach the buttons to one end of a wooden dowel chopstick or even a twig. This becomes your flower stem. For the leaves, you can cut shapes from recycled aluminum cans or plastic lids. Carefully smooth any sharp edges with a nail file or sandpaper. Paint them green or leave them metallic for a fun contrast. Then glue or wire the leaves onto the dowel just below the flower. Once finished, gently push your flower stakes into the soil of potted plants, raised beds, or garden borders. If kneeling is hard work, from a chair or table and place them at standing height. These button flowers don't wilt, they don't need water, and yet they bring a burst of color and handmade charm wherever they stand. And as you walk past them, you might think about all those shirts and dresses those buttons once held closed, all the dinners, dances, and simple mornings, all stitched into place and now blooming again. Because nothing is ever just old. Sometimes it's just waiting to flower. Some hats are too beautiful to hide away in closets. Maybe it's the wide-brimmed straw one you wore to the farmer's market, or the faded floral cap that once shaded your eyes while planting tomatoes. Though their days of wear may be over, their charm still lingers, and your garden wall is just the place to let it shine. To create this blooming wall of hats, gather a few wide-brimmed hats. Straw or fabric both work fine. You can find them easily at thrift stores, often for less than the price of a seed packet. Don't worry if they're a little frayed or sun-bleached. That's exactly what gives them character. Line the inside crown of each hat with a layer of landscape fabric or plastic to protect the structure and hold soil. Then fill the space gently with potting mix. Choose trailing flowers like petunias lobelia or trailing loelias that will cascade gracefully over the brim. To hang your hat, planters attach a sturdy hook or loop to the back. If the hat is stiff enough, a small nail through the center can work too. Arrange them like a gallery on your fence wall or trellis staggered at different heights, like blooms caught mid-spin in a summer breeze. You don't need to lift anything heavy or do deep digging. Most of this project can be done sitting comfortably at a table, and once hung, the watering and care are just as gentle. What once shielded you from the sun now welcomes it. A circle comes full. Because hats, like memories, are meant to be worn and sometimes displayed with love. There's something playful about a derby hat. Round, proper, a bit dandy. Maybe it reminds you of Sunday bests or gentlemen tipping their hats as they passed. But now, with a little moss and imagination, that polished topper can become a soft resting place for a bird's nest, real or make-believe. To begin, find a sturdy thrifted derby or bowler hat, felt or fabric, whichever you fancy. Gently wipe it clean and reinforce the inside with floral foam or lightweight stuffing. This will help create a soft, rounded structure to build on without collapsing. Arrange a miniature bird's nest in the center. You can use a faux nest from a craft store or weave one yourself with twigs, raffia moss, and a touch of twine. Nestle the little home into the foam and secure it with glue or floral pins if needed. Add tiny speckled eggs, ceramic, wooden, or even hand-painted pebbles. Around the nest, place sprigs of faux greenery, small blossoms, or dried flowers to give your creation a natural feel. You can also tuck in a few twigs or feathers to suggest a bird just stepped out. Now decide where your bird nest hat will live: on a garden table, mounted on a fence post, or hung from a hook or tree branch like a woodland decoration. It doesn't take much space, and it doesn't ask much of your hands, only care and creativity. Every time you see it, you'll smile, not just because it's whimsical, but because it holds the memory of slower times when people dressed up for spring picnics and every object had a bit more flair. And maybe, just maybe, a curious bird might pause to say hello. Because even the fanciest hat can make a humble home. You've likely replaced plenty of light bulbs over the years. Some broke with a pop, others flickered before fading to black. But a burned-out bulb doesn't have to mean the end, not if you see it as a tiny glass world waiting to bloom. This project turns old light bulbs into hanging micro-gardens, delicate floating displays that hold moss succulents or air plants, all without needing a large space or heavy lifting. Begin by carefully hollowing out used light bulbs. Wear gloves and eye protection as you gently remove the metal base and inner filament. If that step feels too delicate, ask for help. It only takes a minute, and the rest is simple. Once the bulb is empty and clean, fill the bottom with a small pinch of moss, a bit of soil, or even colored sand. Add your miniature plant. Air plants work beautifully since they don't need much soil or water. You can also use tiny succulents or faux greenery for a no-maintenance option. Wrap thin wire or strong fishing line around the bulb's metal threads to create a secure hanger. Then hang your tiny garden from a repurposed chandelier, an old coat rack, or a tree branch. A sunny porch or bright windowsill is ideal, somewhere you can enjoy its quiet beauty. You don't need to bend or carry anything heavy. Each bulb is light as air, and the entire project can be done while seated. These floating gardens don't just decorate, they enchant, like tiny lanterns filled with life instead of flame. Because even the smallest, most fragile things can become vessels of growth. And sometimes it's the broken light that reveals something new inside. Think back to summer nights, the ones when the sky turned velvet blue and little dots of gold danced across the garden. Fireflies, magical, fleeting, glowing reminders that nature knows how to light her own candles. With a few old bulbs and a little care, you can bring that same magic back to your garden, gently glowing solar-powered fireflies that flicker to life as dusk falls. Start by collecting a handful of used light bulbs. Hollow them out just as you did for the micro gardens, slowly, gently, and with gloves to protect your hands. Once clean, give them a quick rinse and let them dry completely. Now, using soft yellow or pale green glow-in-the-dark paint, coat the inside of each bulb. Not too much, just enough to give it that firefly glow when the sun goes down. If you have a solar fairy light set or small LED solar bulbs, nestle one inside the bulb and secure it with a dab of glue or silicone. Make sure the solar panel remains exposed to sunlight during the day. Next, wrap thin wire or fishing line around the base of each bulb and create hanging loops. Suspend your glowing fireflies from tree branches, pergolas, or a trellis. Stagger the heights so they float at different levels like tiny lanterns caught mid-flight. As evening comes, they'll softly shimmer, not bright, not harsh, just enough to remind you that even small things can glow beautifully when the light is right. This project doesn't require much movement or strength. It's slow, simple, and wonderfully satisfying. The kind of task you can do at your own pace while the kettle warms on the stove and the garden hums quietly outside. Because joy doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it just flickers into view, like an old bulb that's learned how to shine again. Do you remember how we used to dress for outings, him in a sharp leather satchel, you with your favorite little purse tucked neatly under your arm? Those bags held more than keys and tissues. They held stories, journeys, tiny totems of togetherness. Now those same handbags, forgotten in closets or spotted on thrift store shelves, can become a charming garden pair, blooming side by side like the lifelong companions they once were. To begin, choose 2 complementary bags, one larger structured his bag, and one smaller, daintier hers purse. Clean them gently, keeping the scuffs and wear, they're part of the charm. You might find one in brown leather, the other in floral tapestry. Opposites that belong together. Line each bag with a plastic planter liner landscape fabric or a bit of repurposed plastic to protect the interiors. Then fill them with potting soil, taking care not to overfill. Choose compact plants or soft vines, perhaps ferns, pansies, or little marigolds. You can even tuck a heart-shaped stone or a handwritten plant marker inside as a personal touch. To display them, simply set them side by side on a garden bench, a patio shelf, or an old trunk on the porch. If lifting is uncomfortable, place them on a table where you can work with ease. They don't need to be flashy, just tender. Like a couple sitting quietly after many years enjoying the view together. Every time you walk by, you'll see more than planters. You'll see a story. Of love, of aging, of lives lived in tandem. Because some things are better in pairs, especially when they bloom. Do you still have an old globe tucked in a corner? Once it held dreams of travel routes marked in pencil oceans traced with fingertips. Now, with its colors faded and its maps outdated, it may seem forgotten. But a globe, like a life well lived, still has light left to give. This project brings those old wonders back to life, transforming a vintage globe into a glowing butterfly lantern that lights up your garden at night. Start by carefully cutting your globe in half, or removing the seam if it's already split. Hollow out the inside, removing the paper map if needed. You'll be left with a smooth, rounded shell perfect for painting in light. Now gather your craft paints and brushes. Decorate the inside or outside of the globe with fluttering butterflies painted in soft, dreamy colors like lavender sky blue and golden yellow. You can use stencils, stickers, or even decoupage with tissue paper or translucent designs. Let the colors dance like wings in the breeze. Next, place a strand of solar-powered fairy lights inside the globe, tucking them gently to spread an even glow. Make sure the solar panel is exposed outside so it can charge in the sun. If you like, add a few tiny wire butterflies attached delicately so they appear to hover inside the shell. Seal the opening with a clear plastic cover, or leave it open depending on where you'll display it. Hang your glowing butterfly lantern from a hook, nestle it in a planter, or set it on a pedestal among your flowers. At night, the butterflies will glow gently like memories fluttering just at the edge of light. And in the soft hush of twilight, this once-forgotten globe becomes something new, not just a decoration, but a quiet reminder that transformation is always possible. Because even the world, when cracked open, can bloom. And so we arrive, dear friend, at the gentle close of today's journey, a journey not through stores or catalogs, but through forgotten corners, dusty bins, and memories reborn. I hope you feel a quiet spark, not from buying something new, but from seeing how ordinary things, when met with care, can become extraordinary again. A shoe becomes a planter. A light bulb becomes a firefly. A globe, once silent, spins with butterflies under the stars. You see, aging doesn't mean less. It means more meaning, more depth, more knowing. Like the garden boots we turned into glowing path lights, or the sun hats that now cradle blossoms, your years are not behind you. They are in everything you touch. Each item we use today, the button, the denim scrap, the worn-out suitcase, was once dismissed. And yet, when held with love, it bloomed. That is the secret of upcycling. It's not just about saving money, though it does that beautifully. It's about giving new life again and again to what still has something to give. So tell me, which piece whispered to you today? Was it the little clutch blooming on the garden wall? The floating light bulb garden, gentle as a breath? I'd be honored to know. Share your favorite in the comments. Or tell me about your own quiet transformation, an old thing made new again. And if this slow visit brought you joy, feel free to subscribe. We'll keep making beauty together, not the loud kind, but the kind that glows in the evening, rustles softly in the breeze, and waits patiently to be found. Until next time, may your garden be a place of peace, your heart full of wonder, and your hands always creating. Happy gardening, dear friend.